Welcome to day 4 of our Senior Dog Care Pet Summit. I want to thank you all for being a part of this. We're continuing through all the days. And I also wanted to give a little shout out. I heard this morning at the post office that it's National Pet Day. So we'll be celebrating all those creatures, great and small, that enlighten our lives and give them so much more value. Our lives are so much valuable because of all the pets that we have, whether it's a bird or a fish or a dog, is what we've been talking about. So today's program, I'm hopeful that those topics that you hadn't heard that we're hoping to hear, that they came up today, and so you were able to get your bucket list checked off of what you were wanting to experience and learn about. Today's was about aging, about stress, about those senior related conditions, and then looking at end of life and how to be able to approach that with the new focus that's available out there now. So I'll review a little bit about the other thing is giving a thank you then again to our sponsors. So RevitaVet and the Healing Vet, both of those were our sponsors for this program, and we definitely appreciate all of their input and willingness to help support this. So our first presenter was Dr. Odette Suter, and her topic was how to optimize your senior dog's nervous system. So this is where we got into some of those specific conditions. So she evaluated and brought to light the cognitive dysfunction, mobility in general, degenerative myelopathy, laryngeal paralysis, urinary incontinence. She really gave a nice walkthrough of anatomy and physiology so that you could understand why there are these conditions that can arise. She focuses on her 7 pillars, which include some of nutrition, the microbiome, looking at diet, toxins, optimizing that nervous system throughout life, focusing on the endocrine glands and how that affects the body, the autonomic nervous system, and then emotions and the mind, and how all of those play a part and intertwine with each other. She said to us that neurodegenerative diseases are life-spanning. And so her point is that if you've been to your traditional veterinarian and this condition has been diagnosed, that it's already been there for quite a while. Then also there was some focus on the autonomic nervous system, explaining about the 3 divisions, the sympathetic, the parasympathetic, and the enteric division, how those all work, and then how the mind can affect the sympathetic, which shuts down the enteric. She had lots of pictures, which I thought was way cool. It really helps with the words when you can see those pictures and be able to then get it in your mind of how this anatomy is. She also talked about hypomobility and the importance and the results of that, and referred pain, how there can be a problem in the neck that can refer down to the leg and cause licking or lameness. I'll just put in a little story about that. This was many, many years ago when I first started with the chiropractic. So we're probably about in 1999. This dog had come into my traditional veterinary practice, and a Cocker Spaniel, and he was lame on his right front leg and had been lame for quite some time. And she'd been to the traditional veterinarian, she'd been to the specialist, they'd done radiographs and MRIs and all these kinds of things. And they couldn't exactly find why this dog was so lame. And so their approach was going to be to amputate the leg, which then they would have known why the dog was lame, because a 3-legged dog is definitely going to walk like it's got a lameness. So that was not okay with the pet parent. And so she brought him in to see me, and it ended up being that the dog actually had a cervical subluxation that was radiating down the leg. So he had a radiculopathy that made the lameness there, and there wasn't anything in the leg itself. This is where they were looking. The problem was up in the neck, and that had been missed. So we want to be able to realize that nerves travel a long distance, and so where you see the problem may not be where the source of it really is. Dr. Suter also talked about dental health and how the effect of that can also impact the temporal mandibular joint, so then affect chewing and things like that. She too had her part about those long toenails, so you got to see from her perspective again how that impacts posture and movement. Her point is that attention starts with prevention. to reduce inflammation, preventing eating. Don't feed those high carb diets because they are very inflammatory. Watching the weight, keeping that physique, the core strength really there, brain support, and about proper harnesses to help with those older ones. She also mentioned that toxins destroy the nervous system, as they do. They affect the brain health, definitely, and a lot of that, along with the leaky gut and the glyphosates and heavy metals and all that, can lead to some of this cognitive dysfunction that we see in our dear old fellas. Second up was Dr. PJ Broadfoot, and her topic was about dental care in the elderly. We talked about periodontal disease. Many dogs by the age of 3 are already showing it. She talked about the biofilm and how this slime product that is made by the bacteria actually helps it adhere. It also helps the bacteria survive by preventing your own immune system from being able to identify the bacteria being there and actually go after it. Plaque is a form of oral dysbiosis, just like you can have the dysbiosis in the gut, you can have it in the mouth too. So there are certainly microbes that are expected and allowed of sorts to be in the mouth, and then there are many of those which are going to lead to more gingivitis and disease and destruction of the stability of the teeth. Dr. Broadfoot, then also we talked about diet, age, water, the size of the mouth, and the breeds, how different, we're looking at factors that can lead to dental disease. That a lot of those brachycephalics, the short nose, and the breeding that has been done has created teeth that don't even line. So they, even when they masticate it, it doesn't have the proper function and use, and so calculus and then plaque builds up. Alrighty, let's see. So also we looked at the multitude of different diseases that can come about because of the bacteria and the ill health in the mouth. So the affinity of those microbes for the valves of the heart, and the heart gets overloaded, and then it's into the blood system and into the kidneys. We also talked about how important the thymus is for the immune system, and that zinc is a very big key factor in maintaining immune health, which is going to help with mouth, any dermal issues around mucocutaneous junctions, the sores around the edges of the mouth, are oftentimes a zinc deficiency. Some preventive measures, then we visited about those. Certainly the diet. She is a proponent for the raw bones, making sure they're big enough that aren't going to get stuck in the mouth. She talked about cranberries being very good, manuka, the deer velvet. We talked about different oral cares using hydrogen peroxide that can be diluted. Brushing, we talked about Q-tips, using those, different kinds of toothpaste that are available. Some are healthier than others, some that you can make at home, some that actually go after that biofilm, different oral sprays. That CBD can be used to help with periodontal disease. And then she also touched a little bit on ozone. So another way to help. Next up was Josh Briley. This topic was helping anxiety and stress. It's looking at a specific waveform microcurrent device called AlphaStem, which has actually been on the human market since 1981. And all the early studies to prove that it's safe and effective for people were done on animals. So it's been out there a long time. And we talk about the alpha state because that is the brainwave pattern. That's the biological harmonic of the body when everything is good. When you're happy, you don't have any headaches, no pains anywhere. Basically, life is going good. You're having a good day. And so we want to be able to get to that point, because also in that alpha state, then you will be up, and the dog will go to sleep. The animals will sleep better. This can be used to help with a lot of that night pacing and the cognitive dysfunctions, the vestibular problems that they can have where they're all crooked. It can help to reset a lot of that because of how it's applied. We talked about some of the other brain waves and how they function in the body, just to kind of give you a little bit broader perspective of what happens there. So that alpha stem can be used for cognitive issues. It helps for sadness. It helps with sleep issues. So that mental agitation, even aggression, brings that down. The agitation would be similar to like the Alzheimer's, where they can get angry, but also just that feeling of being lost. Anxiety, stress, It is safe to use over cancers as well as in bodies that have cancers. It can also help with seizures. It'll either reduce them, make the episodes be further in between, also can reduce the episode itself. And then, let's see here. Oh, it improves the digestion because it works with the autonomic nervous system. It helps to stimulate the parasympathetic, which pulls down that sympathetic, and the sympathetic is the part that shuts down the gut. So if we can get that gut going, we get that stomach going, we get the pH right, then the body actually digests and you get the good out of that really good food that you're feeding the dogs. Alrighty. Then Dr. Susan Wagner, this was really a fun conversations that we had. She was talking about animals and as they mirror their humans. And we really looked at the energetics and things that are energetically motivated and derived in the bodies. So we looked at life from an energy perspective and also quantum energies and how these can be positive emotions, but they also could be negative emotions. Everything and everyone is about energy, and not only just a constant, even energy, but bursts of energy. Life is quantum physics in constant vibration. So you realize that waveforms, emotions, these are all patterns of energy. And each one you can think about when you're really happy, how you feel energetically. And then when you're sad or when you're angry, how you feel energetically. Those are all different vibrations. And being able to help tune those, because your dog may be being something that you need to experience, or they may be in a way that they're focusing you on what you need to work on yourself. We talked about sound, which is an electromagnetic wave. Invisible, but yet very, very present. And the dogs, all the animals, you see the horses moving their ears and deer and their hearing senses. They're very in tune to everything that's going on. It's a part of that radar. And certainly as these guys get older and start losing some of that hearing, then their comfort level in their day-to-day life starts to diminish. So there's things that we can do. These frequencies can be measured in a lot of different things. And she talked about some of the different research that was done that actually started obviously as a theory and then became proven that that there is a pebble out there that creates this bigger wave, and this wave includes everything and everybody in the universe. We talked a little bit about activation of the sympathetic system. So again, this whole stress thing keeps coming back up because that sympathetic is the fight or the flight. And it's that keeping the body on alert. You don't want to be on alert all the time. That's exhausting. One of the things to help bring that down and take that alertness away is to turn the TV off at times. Don't have this. Don't feel like you have to have background sound. Is to turn it off and just allow the quiet to exist. Take a sound inventory of your home and listen to the music, play something calm, and then see how your dog responds to that. Because the nervous system, the endocrine system will change as these different sounds come into your universe internally. All right, emotions we have reflected back to us. So I mentioned that about the dog doing something to help us pay attention to what we need to work on. So we want to create a safe and a fear-free kind of an environment where they're always feeling good. And a lot of the veterinarian, like I'm really proud of my practice because I worked hard. Part of it was being able to have just this rehab environment where we don't have sick animals in there and we're not doing things that are painful to them, so that when somebody, meaning the new dog, walks in, they're not always like, whoa, man, this don't smell good and there's something bad going on, and they hear somebody back there barking that's saying, quick, get out of here before they take your gonads, and that kind of thing. So you want to have this environment that's comfortable for them at home as well. Vibrational therapies can include the healing touch, Reiki. She even talked about how above your heart is an energy center, and that if you think calm and you think love, and then you notice that the dog or the cat that's beside you, then they become calmer too. So her tip was about finding the peaceful place and having a good connection, thinking about that connection with peace, and then using good intention, because what you intend to happen can happen. Then we kind of turned the corner and we're heading into that focus of what to do, how to know when the time is close. And when it does get there, what are your options and how would you experience and feel, and just guidance on this. So I know from some of the chat we've had that this was an emotional point, maybe because of one that you've already had to say goodbye to and how that experience affected you, but maybe one you have in your sphere right now that you're struggling with. So Dr. Jeanette Yamamoto was our first up. We looked at hospice and palliative care, and then some about pet euthanasia. So the definitions of palliative care is usually weeks to months, mostly, generally somewhere between 2 to 10 months. It can extend to years, but generally not that long of a time. And there can be situations where you may utilize some kind of palliative care because the dog was injured or had a surgery, and you yourself just need some help and you need somebody to come in and do these things with you, for you, or maybe they have a place that you can take them as well. So some palliative care is a temporary. And then the hospice really is that terminal end of life care. It's about keeping them comfortable, both emotionally, so mentally, spiritually, and the body too, that there's not pain going on. And it's also this practice, this area of the hospice care, then is a lot about support for the caregiver, which is you, and the family. So it's a expanded caregivers, that you have the support, you have somebody there to help guide you, to let you know what else can be done, because there's so much more now that can be utilized for palliative and hospice care than what it used to be. She shared some situations of where this could be applied. She is very personal, compassionate. That's how her approach is. And she does an in home assessment, which is very valuable because then she can see what's the environment that they're living in, the lifestyle, and are there things there that could be damaging or compromising. She talked a little bit about the dementia and the cognitive states, the anxiety, different medications that maybe could be used. We also shared some about essential oils and different ones that she uses for calming, like the magnolia. She also talked about different ways that those essential oils can be administered to help you out with that. She has a very soft, gentle approach to euthanasia. So hopefully that will help you too. Then we joined with the team of Lap of Love. And our sixth presenter today up was Dr. Danny McVitie. She is a founder of the Lap of Love Veterinary Hospice program, and it is the art of euthanasia, and it's a nationwide program. Her talk was about understanding euthanasia and the doctors and staff that are involved, because everybody becomes a part of that dog's life, and it's a loss to them too when the goodbye time comes. So it's helping you to feel the least anti-guilt was part of her focus, to be able to give you some pointers, because when it comes, no matter how many times you've been through it, it's still going to be sad, even when you're being prepared. But she did focus then about the quality of the life as well as the quantity, and trying to balance those. And she mentioned not to wait till it's too late. Don't wait too long. One of the most important things in her perspective is understanding the disease process itself. What exactly does your dog have that's going to be that progression towards that end of life point? She also talked about how in-home euthanasias can actually be beautiful, beautiful for the family and very comforting for the dog. She also gave a few tips on in talking to your traditional vet and letting them know that you're looking at hospice care, and you're talking to someone who can do a home euthanasia, because not all traditional vets do that. That we talked about suffering, that it's actually parallel to that disease process. And then she walked us through her process and what it is that Lap of Love does. Then our final one for our Senior Dog Care Pet Summit was Dr. Mary Gardner. And she is actually co-founder of the Lap of Love. And her program was about how to assess your dog's quality of life in the end. And she has her voice and her tone, and you could just see that she enjoys what she does. And she wanted to share with you, even in talking about the end, that this can be enjoyable and pleasurable and things that you can look at so that also when you get to the end, you know that you did everything just right. So some of her points were to look at the ailment itself. Is it short or long? How much of an emergency is it? The personality of the dog that's involved, family beliefs, and also budget. So they take in consideration all of that. The trajectory of the decline, is it something that's going to be slow, gradual, or is this something that's happening very quickly because of the condition that it is? She shared with us some of the tools of evaluating the quality of life, and she had some really interesting ways and different things that you could do to help know that your dog is still enjoying life. If they're doing their favorite thing, she talked about the penny jars. If they have a good day or a bad day, where the pennies go, and then you can see how they're adding up. Also, calendars where you can just mark good days or bad days, which can also give you a reflection of what's happening in the environment maybe that day. She also invited you to review the 5 freedoms, and those are available on their resources page at lapoflove.com, and make sure that the majority of those freedoms, so the freedom to live without fear and the freedom to have good food and all of that, is still there, and then making sure and keeping count of those good days. So I think we had an awesome program for today. It was one that I'm hoping covered those other areas that you had questions on, and actually brought to light a bigger picture of life and then life at the time of death. So we would open it up to questions now. See what we have going on. Guess I better click on my comments page. See what we got. Okay, so the question here from Leanne is, during Dr. Broadfoot's dental health session, we commented that you have to really read the label. And this was talking about Protected 42 product called Teeth. I'm using the product. Could you elaborate your concerns because I'm using it? So that probably was Dr. Broadfoot, because that's not a product I myself have used. So that would have been one that she commented on. And so I'd have to Google up the product to look at it, which isn't something I can really do right now. But we can see about if you want to include that question on the pet parents support page, then I can take a look at it. And maybe Dr. Broadfoot could chime in on that there too. Alrighty, sorry about that, but we'll get to it. Okay, the source for the Perry Support, the Manuka honey spray and the New Zealand deer velvet. So it is a company out of New Zealand, and this product is sold through veterinarians. So it's not available on the market. I've even tried to look, like if I was just Googling up to show it to somebody, and you can't really find it. I mean, you can find the company that explains the product. So it's near New Zealand deer velvet, but of course, if you just Google that up, it comes up with a whole lot of other companies. So it is on my website. You can take a look at it there at avafrick.com and see about the products. Hopefully that answered that one. All right, let's see here. Thank you, Dr. Suter, for being a part of the program. Okay, so we have another dental session question. Dental seaweed is popular here in Australia. Is it marketing hype or does it really help? You know what? I do not know. It's another one I'll have to look about. It may not be something that's available here in the States, but there is a lot of good in different kinds of seaweeds, and I would think it could be somewhat of abrasive as well as having chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is always real good for the epithelium. So I could see that it could be a good product, but I don't really know about that one either. All right, this is from Wendy. She says, I know you've spoken to her. She's a client of mine for many, many years back in Missouri, and still now, about raw bones before, but I've yet to find a way to allow my dogs to chew them without making a mess in my house. and be concerned about raw materials left behind. Okay. Well, Wendy, hopefully now that you're in Florida part of the time, you have that tile floor. It'll be easier to clean. So Wendy she's one of those dachshund owners that doesn't have just one dachshund. She always has a little herd of dachsies. So one thing about them with the raw bones is that you always want to make sure that the bones are larger than what their mouth is, so they're not going to get them stuck. One way to keep them from making a mess would be everybody has their kennel, and the day they get their raw bone is that's where they all run to. And I would think it wouldn't take very long for your troops to get that figured out, and they'd be standing in their crate looking out at you going, okay, when are you giving me mine? But that would be a couple thoughts on that to keep the mess down would be to put them someplace there. Because otherwise, if you put mats down for them to chew on, they still could take them somewhere else. So, or when you have your outside area that's enclosed, if they could go out there and chew on them, but not get into a fight. When you got multiples like that, somebody may want to be a thief. All righty. Okay, so Barbara Schaefer, she says that she was backtracking, and that's totally fine. She was a groomer for 50 years and wanted to comment that, and I have seen that too. So one of the things that the dogs don't like when their nails are being clipped is because the owner is actually squeezing the foot too tightly. So they're using the paw as their leverage because the dog's going to jerk the leg, and then what happens is they squeeze harder and harder on the paw, which just makes the dog say that hurts, don't do it more. And so then they become more insistent. So granted, down at the foot, you don't have a lot of leverage for that motion. So having somebody else hold them at the elbow up towards, the shoulder, the elbow, then the person doing the trimming can hold it too. They're nervous clipping and don't realize their power. That's right. Yeah. So thank you for that, Barb, because all these little tips are what helps everybody realize, oh, that's the thing I was doing, and hopefully can make it easier too. Point well taken. Love it. Buki makes a comment about Lap of Love. Sounds like a truly wonderful organization. So they are. I learned about them. This was many years back when they first started, and I was in Missouri with my traditional practice, but then had moved into the rehab and was no longer doing that kind of a service, which was part of why I enjoyed the rehab, because I wasn't doing anything that was painful, and I emotionally was spent on that. So when Lap of Love came along, and they were actually on the Illinois side, and I'm on the Missouri side, west of St. Louis, but they were always like so nice, so considerate. I never had in all the years, so probably, 20 years almost of people utilizing Lap of Love. Nobody was ever unhappy for their service. So I think that they have created a very wonderful network across the United States with this program. Okay. So Annie says the topic of environmental stresses remind me of my dog, who's a therapy dog in hospitals and spends time with people who experience different issues. Many times the environment is stressful, right? So the environment that the people were in before, but also the environment in the hospital because of not only their condition, but the machines and the beds and maybe how they're spoken to. I know sometimes in some situations I've seen that older people that are in hospital situations or in nursing homes and that the staff gets to where they talk to them like they're a kid now again, which I realize there is a bit of you're young and parents take care of you, and then everybody is living their own life, and then the parents start to get older and now they're degenerating down. But still there's sometimes I think not as much respect for the older people who still have a whole lot to share, but depending on that situation, and I'm sure that your dog picks up on that. So that's where you'd have to learn some of this Reiki and some other good energies that you can use, because your dog, when they go to do those therapies, you don't know what kind of energies they're taking on from each of those different people in order to help those people. And so now your dog comes home and now it's encumbered with all of these energies that are not beneficial. Otherwise, he or she wouldn't be taking them on. So some of the programs that we've discussed today and some of the other days would be things that you could do to help reset your dog so that it's kind of like cleansing them, getting some of that bad mojo and those villains, those bad emotions out so that your dog can go on freely. And some of them I'm sure they can shake off pretty easy. It's like, okay, that one's gone. But there may be others that stick a little bit. So thinking about that and doing some of that. Let's see here. Okay, Carol mentions that the number one takeaway that she had is just how important and impactful trimming the nails and having them trimmed are. But it seems to me that not many people, vet groomers, trim the way that the vet couple showed. This is true. I mean, I wasn't trained in vet school to trim them that way. I figured it out along the way that that's what I had to do. And others have figured it out too and now are sharing it. And I can tell you that many of the dogs that come in that have been to the groomers, they're trimmed on the leading out angle and not doing that blunt up. Certainly having the advent of the Dremels and people using those and sandpaper, emery boards, things like that to help smooth that off is nice. But that's true. You're welcome, Annie. Annie says, thank you for this Q&A. You're very welcome. All right, so Zana has a question about yesterday's live Q&A. Is it available to watch on YouTube now? She wasn't able to join. Yeah, so you should have gotten an email about yesterday's. And even at the beginning of today's program, when you got your email, you can click at the top and that brings up the day before's Q&A session. So you should be able to click on there and watch that. Okay, so this question is about degenerative myelopathy in a dog. It says, my dog has DM and is declining for 6 months. He is 15, which is really good to just in the past 6 months be declining with this, and has dental problems also. He keeps pacing and had weakness in his right side and collapses. Do I need to make the call soon, do you think? So what I would do, because I can't speak for you and him because I don't know you personally or his life, 15 is a good age, but I would review the programs that we had today and follow some of the suggestions and the guidelines. And if you need to get out paper and do some writing down. And then the other thing that I say too is include him in your decision. So talk to him like as you're even doing your review, discuss it out loud. Let those sound waves move and include his ears and his self. He's been with you, he knows you and he knows what's best for you. And I'm sure he knows what's best for him. So I would read, that's my suggestion is to listen to the programs we had today and find the points that resonate with you and the ones that make sense and make you feel the best about this difficult situation that you're facing. If you can put the ones together that make you feel the best, and like I said, include him in on it. Ask him, say you got a question for him and see if he looks at you or looks away from you or how he moves. Look for indicators of ways he used to communicate to you. Okay, Carol, your number 2 takeaway is that I have a good sense of humor. Thank you for that. Yeah, I do. Sometimes I muffle it a little bit because I can get a little bit wound up. But you know what? It is about having fun. And I have enjoyed this, even though Isaac had to work real hard to help me learn how to do all this. And Rihanna, too, she was so great in helping me learn how to do the zooms and the taping and the right camera and the lights and logging on and then having the right Yeah, whew, that was stressful. Talk about anxiety and stress. I had my alpha-stim ear clips on every day. But yeah, animals are fun. They help us laugh. And my book, my biography, Conversations with Animals, really has a lot of that interjected into it because they are fun. And if we can look at life from that way, I'm not such that, I used to be like very focused and then like so driven that I couldn't allow myself to have fun, but I do allow now. Thank you for noticing that. I appreciate that very much. All righty. So, any questions about the summit things, you may just want to email and contact them directly if you're having log-on problems, connection problems, getting your emails and things like that, because you still have time to be able to watch and upgrade to the VIP. You can still do that and get some more of the sessions. Let's see. So here we have a blessed holistic animal practitioner, and that's wonderful. That wasn't one of the focuses when I was in school and first studying. It wasn't even looked at from this universal perspective of pulling in the environment and lifestyle and all these other things that make such a big difference in getting to the solution, which is what really started the problem to begin with, and creating a healthier, happier life. So Annie has a question, curious about my thoughts on surgery for senior dogs. Okay, I'm sure I got some on that. My dog had a lump that was non-diagnostic. Uh, okay, so histopathology recommended for risk. Hey, Isaac, can you bring this up of mammary? Yeah, okay, so they were suspecting mammary gland location, so maybe some kind of an adenocarcinoma, not growing, but should it be removed? So they did some kind of an aspirate, and then you had histopathology. So they're thinking it is something. So my thoughts on surgery for the senior dog. So one would be, how senior is the senior? So is the senior a 7, 8, 9-year-old, or is the senior a 17, 18-year-old, which is going to make a big difference. So what is the size of this mass? Is it the size of a pea, or is it the size of a golf ball? And how quickly did it get to that size? If it's something that's been very, very slow growing, then, and your dog is super, super older, then that may not, that the surgery, the anesthesia, the blood tests, the drugs, the poking, the fear, all of that could take this little seesaw thing that's been like this and all of a sudden make it go kerplunk. So you have to consider that. And I think that might be why you're asking this question, is you have to weigh all of those. And good for you for not just jumping in right away and the doctor says, oh, you need to do surgery, and you did it. It's good that you're thinking about it. Also, I've seen, especially in the mammary, because mammary is glandular and it's lumpy itself and it can form cysts and other things. And so maybe it's just some kind of tissue that isn't necessarily cancerous. And if it's been slow growing, it could be there a long time and not ever evolve into anything. Also depends on, is it on the surface or is it under the surface? Because with tumors that are on the surface, if it's on the surface and has any kind of an opening, there's a product called neoplacine, which is made from bloodroot. Bloodroot is a daisy kind of a flower that grows in many areas on the edge of a wood. So you got a field and a woods where you'll see these. And the flower of it is like a daisy. But when you pull it out of the ground, the root, instead of being a grayish, greenish color, brownish, is the color of old blood. And that's where it got its name, bloodroot. But this particular plant has a propensity for rapidly proliferating cells. So it's great to use. It comes in an oral form, a topical form, and an injectable form. So I have used this since the early 2000s, like maybe 2002 or I don't know, somewhere around in there. I found it. And it's neoplacine is made by a company called Buck Mountain Botanicals. So you can go to buckmountainbotanicals.net and see the product there. He used to have a lot of different pictures showing stages of how it's used, but I think he's taken those down just because the government was trying to interfere with his ability to say what it really does, which, it's like drugs can only say they kill things and remove things. And so, but this I've used in the oral form, I've used the injectable form. So if it does have an opening on the surface, you can certainly use that topical. And within a couple weeks, I mean, it'll go in there, destroys it, thing falls off. Then he has a wound balm and it heals. Voila, you're all done. I've also sometimes in those that weren't open, use the injectable into the middle and you get it started dissolving, and then it'll, like a volcano, it starts to erupt, and then you can go to using the topical. So, it can be a little messy because it's going to be an open wound for a bit of time, but gee whiz, especially for small things. I've used it for oral cancers, just all kinds of places. So you can take a look at that. Okay, so Christine, poor Christine, shout out. We all got to give her a little bit of help here. She's a family with 4 seniors right now. So she's been working at trying to watch all the seminars, presentations that we've had. And you certainly have time yet to see today's. You get today's for 48 hours, and you can upgrade to the VIP so that you can watch them at your leisure. Because I'm sure with 4 seniors, you probably have a variety of different conditions going on that takes up a lot of your time, especially if you're doing home cooking and you're feeding really good food. But that's part of what makes each of their days so rewarding, is that they, like, what else have they got at that age of life but thinking about when their next great meal is going to come. So not feeding them that same old kibble that they've had every day of their entire life, giving them other options and making their days be so beautiful because they get that great food and their tummy's happy and they're happy, and then we're happy. All righty. What else we got going here? Let's see. I can go back to some of my notes from today and bring up some topics. Anybody want to give out a shout to where they're coming from? We've had quite a few from over in Europe over the course of the program, and that's been fun. Being able to talk with some from across the way. Making sure I haven't missed something here we want to bring up. Hopefully all of you have, we got Queensland, Australia. We've got a few from Florida, Montreal, Canada. Awesome. Mountain Home, Arkansas. Very good. I actually know where Mountain Home, Arkansas is. My family lives in Licking, Missouri, which is just north of the border there. So in the southern part of Missouri. So that's way cool. The Catskill Mountains in upstate New York. Awesome. More Canada, northern New Jersey. Awesome. Oh, hi. Yeah. Let's see here. Las Cruces, New Mexico, California, southern Florida. Yes, small world. Dearna, nice to see you there. And little Cherry, she's so cute. Hoping everything's going good with you. We got California on board. This is awesome. Let's see here. And I started, hopefully everybody has taken the time to download your free books. So I did up that little book, and I just did that for this program. So another thing I took some time was, there's one from Maine, Wisconsin, welcome. Building a Better Body from Mouth to Bum. And part of the bum part, if you hadn't figured that out, is about anal sacs. And anal, S-A-C-S, making sure you got that, the anal sacs. So those 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock glands that can cause a lot of problems with not even just old ones, they can happen. But the thing about this, B-U-T-T, this butt thing, is that when there's anal sac problems, it can come about because there's supposed to be pressure on them when the dog defecates, and that pressure then empties those little sacs out. The sacs have a duct, kind of like a little balloon there. And they're scent sacs, just like what skunks have. And so as the dogs defecate, then they should empty those out. But if they're too obese and there's fat around those little sacs, then they don't get the pressure. Welcome, Nevada. And so the pressure isn't put on those to empty them. That's one thing. If the dog has consistently soft stool, also there's not the pressure on them. And then sometimes just because of being in that space, the little ducts that are the opening, the little cave hallway to get out, those can actually become obstructed. But the bottom line to this is that anal sac problems goes to a liver that's not being able to do all of its jobs. So a liver that's not functioning optimally can create this. You get in like a hamster on the wheel where you're having to go in every 6 or 7 weeks to get the anal sacs emptied out. So in the book that I did, there's some hints of things that you can do, some steps. I love the Epsom salt soaks. Dogs love the Epsom salt soaks. And then targeting the liver and improving the liver will help then to stop this recurrent anal sac problem. Pat asks, is the dog alpha stim different to the human? No, they're exactly the same. The waveform, so the dogs vibrate in the same wave frequency band that we humans do. So I've used it. I've used the alpha stim on dogs, cats, rats, rabbits, guinea pigs, ferrets, llamas, alpacas, goats, cows, horses, as far as doing the cranial electrotherapy stem on all of those. And I had a gecko in one time that had some TMJ problems that came about because the mineral problems in the diet. And so we were using the alpha stem, the probes through that as well. Birds, use the alpha stem on birds. So we're all vibrating in with this familiar band, and the alpha pattern, the alpha harmonics are the same for all of the other creatures. And that's why all the studies that were done early were able to prove that it was safe for humans. I mean, studies were done on monkeys too early on, and not specifically about the company, just research that was going on about the electrical fields of the body. If you really want to learn more about that, you can read Candace Pert's Molecules of Emotion. She was early on, she's actually the researcher, she was at Georgetown University that found opioid receptors. Those were the first receptors. Before her research, there was never the word of receptors, and that was the first receptor of the body that was discovered. And then she coined the word ligand, which ligand is like the key. And earlier on, they thought that in order for a receptor at a cell wall, so immune cells have lots and lots of, like, millions of receptors. The heart cells have millions of receptors, neurons, lots of receptors. So they thought that this ligand was like a key that had to connect in and then somehow attach in order to open up that receptor. But as time has gone on and technology has gone on, they realize now that these ligands actually just vibrate around. And instead of being like a key that goes in the car door, you turn it and you open the door, it's like the key fobs we have now, and you can stand on the other side of the parking lot when you partied too hard and forgot what row you put your car in, or your truck, and you can bleep this thing and watch for the lights to flash. That's how the ligands actually work on cells. And each receptor will have its acceptance is about 4 or 5 different ligands. So every ligand doesn't open up every receptor, but they discovered that in these harmonics and these waves, which a lot of what we were talking about today is that it doesn't have to be in touch, that these wave energetics move throughout fluid and throughout the universe, which is also why we can have telepathy. You can be thinking about somebody, and then all of a sudden you get an email from them, and you hadn't talked to them in 6 months or more, and then there they are. So this connection, it's how practitioners that do biofrequency reading, how we can assess a body when the body's not exactly there. I use cheek swabs and fur because I have the DNA and it's more like direct life of them, and photos if I don't already know who they are. But there's ways that we can connect without having to be right there touching. And that's all a part about that. It's pretty cool stuff, isn't it? The other one that I was going to mention too is Robert Becker was an orthopedic surgeon, and he got frustrated with non-union fractures, and he actually then went researching. This is the preamble to the alpha stem understanding about wave frequencies and which ones the bodies can best use. And so his book, which is Body Electric, is really, really a good read if you're into the science. But it explains his discoveries, starting with salamanders, because they can lose a leg and they go into hibernation for a week or so, and then they're up running and moving around again, and that leg regrows. They can regrow whatever. They can even have their backs transected, and then it'll come back together. So he started researching then and to discover what do they have at their nerve endings, and his story is all about that, and I can talk about that for hours. But that is part about where we got to in the 70s to be able to do then the formation of devices and things to help the bodies like the alpha stem does. All right. So Isaac, you had another one for me. Get off my talking there. So maybe I'm just going to take a guess. Okay. So we had our vets come to our house to help a dog get over the bridge, cross the bridge. And so I guess that she's talking about the tranquilizer, and that he cried when the injection went in, and that it was traumatic for her husband. And that's possible that the dog wasn't quite ready when the injection went in. It surprised him. That's possible. Also, getting a shot, any kind of an injection, isn't necessarily comfortable. And especially because he was at home, Copper was at home, and he wasn't expecting anything like that because nothing painful happened at home because you were his guardian. And so his life was always nice and comfortable, and he didn't expect that. Yeah. So, and they've all come a long ways too in realizing there's new drugs and different ways and things that can be done to help support. Okay, so Maritza says, what homeopathic medicine is good for a 13-year-old dog with liver disease? He's taking prednisone. Oh, penicillin. He's also a picky eater, and all he wants are treats. Well, I'd say right now, if what he wants are treats, depending on your treats, they could be very, very good. And he may have developed and become a picky eater because what he was being fed and what he ate didn't make his insides feel good. But also having the liver condition can make you not feel good about eating either, because every time the food comes in, the liver gets signaled. So there'd be a lot of things here that I would consider. And I'm not a certified homeopathic practitioner, so you'd probably have to ask Dr. Will Falconer for the answer to that question, specifically if you're wanting homeopathic. Now, I do work with different herbs that can help. So, you look at like milk thistle and burdock and rhubarb and different things like that can help with liver disease. But also the prednisone is not helping the liver either. So there must be some kind of an inflammatory something. I think there's a bigger picture here. And you would be able to get him to a point that he could eat good things and he would think those were treats, and that it would really help him by helping the liver digestive processes. Certainly you don't want to stress the liver with carbs. The liver has to break down carbohydrates. It needs lots of B vitamins to break down carbohydrates. So we don't want to stress it more when it's already having problems. So helping the liver along is both basically going to be protein type of foods. So check in with Will on that homeopathic product. But otherwise, I'd be talking herbs and other things. All right, so I know that they are used for different things, however, based on a budget. If you had to choose between the alpha stem or an infrared laser, which one would you select? It would depend on what you had going on. If what your concern is a lot of emotion, so things with the cognitive dysfunction, mental anxiety, stress, mental upset, then definitely the alpha stem, because it has the ear clip part. And when you put on the ear clips, it'll help pain everywhere in the body. It doesn't change the environment, which is what you can do with the laser, the ear clips. Now, the alpha stem has another part of it where you can treat peripherally. So you can help the environment and treat centrally, so at the brain. And we'll talk more of this in my program, my masterclass program that'll be after our Pet Summit is over with, the Life Extend Method Master Summit. I do have actually the first week, we're going to talk about specifically the 4 pain pathways and the importance of being able to treat pain at all those areas. But if you're looking at just helping a hip or just helping a knee or an area of the body and you want to go more economical, then you can do that. But if you have more of that mental state problems, then definitely the Alpha Stim would be the way to go. All right, so we've got 5 minutes left here. Thank you all for everything that you've been providing in your support, in your presence, because that's also energy too that continues to build and build and build. There's the information for, we're on that senior class, we're only going to take 20. So it's going to be very personalized. It's going to be one-on-one. And when you sign up for that senior masterclass, there's a lot of extras that you get. So you get my whole, and you would just upload it, stretching and exercises for dogs. So this goes through different zones of the body. I have exercises on here for the back, exercises on here to help balance for those neuroproprioceptive deficits, for the front legs, the rear legs, for the neck. We have strengthening exercises, flexibility exercises. So you get all of that along with the downloads that are printed sheets that then you can follow on how to do them. You also get my whole Tai Chihuahua program, which would be downloaded. So you can use this as my low impact based on Tai Chi, because I was doing Tai Chi at the time. And then I just one day had one of those funny days like we were talking about, and I got this Tai Chihuahua thing in my head and went with it. But cats like it, dogs like it. So you get that whole program. And also, those who are really looking to get serious is how to customize nutrition in dogs and cats. It's a body systems approach. There's actually a questionnaire that you fill out, and it's based on body zones and organs. And depending on which one has the most numbers, the biggest percentage of hits, then that's the area you want to focus. And this book helps you to walk through what nutrients would that area of the body need and how would you approach that if you're trying to look at what do I supplement along with the good food that I'm already feeding. And then last but not least is my biography. So this is Conversations with Animals. So you'll have a lot more of my pet stories from childhood on, and some stories from my clients about me. And there's some stories in here where they're not everything always went well. I was very truthful about what happened along the way. But you know what? It's all about building who you are. And so sometimes we have to have those struggles to make us stronger and to make us better. And so I'm thankful for all that I had to experience along the way. And hopefully in that book are things that you can take away that can help you in your path forward. Alrighty, T.L. Henderson, thank you. T.L. Henderson says, I was so impacted by Dr. Frick's comment in one of the euthanasia talks about how sometimes our dogs hang on for us. Yes, they do. They don't want to, they're not ready to say goodbye because they still feel like you're, for whatever reason, needing them, or that they're hanging on because you can't let go. And so we need to be able to let them go when it's time and just thank them and say, we're so happy that you were a part of my life and that this adventure has been awesome. And then, as I always say, when we get to the end of things, is that, happy trails to you all, and happy trails to, them as they go over the bridge and then figure we're going to see them sometime. And you know what? They don't always leave. A lot of times spiritually, they're still around, and they'll every now and then. I recently had a friend from Missouri that had stopped by. He was on a little trip, and he stopped, and we were out hiking, and we're going along, and all of a sudden his dog from behind that had been gone a little while, he just, like Bernie just said to me, I just told John what he said. So they're still protecting us even when we don't see them every day. And that's such a cool thing. And we've got some signed up that are looking forward to the masterclass. Thank you, Carmen. It's going to be way cool. There's so much more to tell and share. And I really will make it applicable so you can do some things and make some changes. And also those mental energies that you have that you want to be able to cultivate. So this is going to be like fertilizer and real good water on the plant. Wendy says, this has been such a well-rounded summit. Really amazing. Thank you, Wendy. Such valuable information, and so glad that I upgraded so I will be able to re-listen to the different presentations later. And as I said, I think I said that yesterday, is that that's the part about the upgrade, is that you're not always at a point in your life to like grab onto something. Like you hear this and that's what you learned, and later on you listen again and you hear something and you go, I didn't even remember that that was in the program. Is that really the same one? Because you weren't ready to receive it. It wasn't your time to have it then, but now it is. And so that's why doing these things and being able to listen again in the future makes it so much more valuable for you, because then you're ready and then you'll remember it. Otherwise, we just think, I don't remember. But at any rate, thank you all for being here. This has been wonderful. As much work as this all was, even though it was like a labor of love, I feel a little sad today now at the end saying goodbye. But I will say then, this is not goodbye. It's just till later. So happy trails, everyone.